What's up guys, KooKenji here, and in today's video we're going to be covering how to play any in pro clubs. Now this is going to be a very long, very extensive video, so I do hope you guys enjoy. And if you want to learn any other positions such as cam, striker, goalkeeper, or any of those positions, or any other general tips or guides videos, do make sure to check out my playlist because I have made plenty of videos down below and they will be very extensive and helpful for you too. Intros and shameless self-promo aside, let's get into the video. Now the first thing we're going to look at is formation, and the formation I always go with is 5-2-1-2. Now this formation is in my opinion the best formation because one, defensively it has plenty of width and it allows you to play at the back because you have so many players in defense. And although the attack might seem narrow, if you're playing with another attacker or striker, they can provide the width that you need and the formation doesn't provide. So you're really not punished for having a narrow formation. The second thing, as I mentioned, with the defense being wide, this is very helpful for players that love to run down the line, which a lot of times you will face, and it's very helpful for counter attacks too. Obviously you have 5 defenders on the back, and the reason this is so good is because the CPU as individuals suck, but together they are very good. It is like the meme that is ape together strong. That is a perfect analogy for CPU, because as individuals they'll probably let you down, but because you've got 5 at the back, together they are a very strong and cohesive unit. And I've played plenty of formations such as 4-1-2-1-2, 4-3-2-1, 4-2-3-1, all the popular ones, and in my opinion 5-2-1-2 just dominates all of them because I'm very confident in my own attacking ability, so I don't need that many attackers up top. What I don't believe in is the CPU. Even though I know I'm a good defender, it's very difficult when you're just doing like one-on-ones with just the CPU against a pro 99 place player. So it is very helpful having those extra defenders to help mark up. The next thing I want to talk about is how many players you might want to play with and what positions you might want them to play with. So the max players you want to play with, in my opinion, is 5 or 4, and that's where you have like the best cohesion as well as having the pro players to play with. Any more than 5, then there's not really much point in you controlling the CPU because there aren't many CPU to use, as well as using the CPU is a lot harder because there's players all around, and then you've just got a bit of a mess of a team where some players don't know really how to fit into your system and then others will, and then you just don't know how to work with everyone. And one of the best benefits of playing with an NE is that you can control the CPU and then you can work as sort of like a hive mind. And what I mean by that is that you know exactly what you want to do and you can visualize what you're going to do, as well as in like attacks you can visualize certain plays you might want to do, as well as in defense you know which players you want to mark as well as which players you want to press. And one thing I really want to emphasize is that as an NE, the players are not there to carry you. You are there to carry and support them because you control the team. You are the most important player there. So you need to be the one that's most accountable and effectively the best player there really. The next thing I want to talk about is which positions you might want to play as. Now, if you're playing as a striker, your player will not make runs in behind, so you'll be more like a cam instead of an actual striker that goes in behind. So if you are a striker, make sure that your teammate striker is prepared to make plenty of runs in behind because otherwise it will be very difficult to penetrate the defense. Outside of striker, you might want to play something like cam. Cam is perfectly fine because that, you know, as I've said, the striker would come back a lot if you're playing as a striker. So that kind of plays like a cam anyway. So cam is a good position to take. But also, I've seen some people put their players as a goalkeeper. Goalkeeper's not bad, but it can be quite boring because you don't really have much players to pass to in terms of outfield players, aside from your teammates. So if you want to play yourself, you can't really do that. And goalkeeper, you do have the benefit of having a good goalkeeper in there, as well as you can make long kicks, so counter-attacks and that sort of play style can be very easy to do with a goalkeeper in net. The other position I want to look at is centre back, and centre back I think is probably the worst position to go as an NE, or any defensive position really. And the reason for that is because there aren't really many outstanding individual performances as a defender unless you're specifically controlling one defender. Because As an any, you want to defend as a collective, not as an individual. So having one really good defender is quite easy to play around for the opposition because they can just avoid that defender. And on top of that, you're not even going to be controlling your centre back half the time. So a lot of the time, you're just going to be relying on the CPU's positional awareness and hoping that they can position the player okay themselves. Lastly, there's midfield as well as wings, and they're not particularly too good either. They're not bad in any sense, but I feel like your pro is just wasted there. So unless you don't have space up top, then I'd recommend going in midfield. At the end of the day, this is all about fun, so just play the positions you want to, as well as your friends want to. But the last thing you don't want to do is just have the CPU up top, because as in any controlling CPU, their shooting sucks. Unlike when the CPU control their own CPU, their shooting is actually low-key pretty good. But as in any, just make sure someone is playing up top. You don't want to be controlling the CPU because one, they're very slow, and two, they can't finish. When you are playing with around 5 players, you want to fill out a spine. Those are the optimal positions you want pro players to be in. So that'll be goalkeeper, centre back, either CDM or CM, cam and striker. Now some of them can mix about, like you could have 2 centre mids instead of a centre back, and that'll be your defensive solidity. But generally you just want a nice spine for playing as an any, and that'll help you the best. But otherwise, that can be quite difficult to find, especially in friends. So just play with the players you want to play with the positions you want to play with, and really just try and have fun. Lastly, I want to talk about the settings, and the settings you might want to use and why. So the first setting is the any position. So there's benefits and negatives of playing either against an any or a CPU, and I'll go over them. So the benefit of playing against the CPU is that they're kind of easier to control because they don't press as much. So if you like playing possession, they're quite nice to play against possession. But obviously if you're playing as an any, you can't really choose to play against the CPU, as the any settings only allows you to match other any's. And the negatives to playing against CPU is that they are quite unpredictable because they are very RNG based. They don't make human errors like we do, but they will make errors, but it is just very inconsistent. So it can be quite difficult to play against, especially in attack, because they don't make as many errors like a human would do. You can't really do stuff like skill against CPU. Likewise, against an any, you're going to find they make more mistakes, so they can be a lot easier to play against. But if you come across a good any, then it can be obviously very difficult. But most any's tend to be pretty bad because FIFA Pro Clubs, playing as an any does not translate properly to playing something like Ultimate Team where you have good players all around. Because the CPU are pretty bad, you have to adjust your playstyle to that, and most any's do not do that, so it can be exploited fairly easily. So for people watching this coming over from like Ultimate Team, learning to become a good any, you need to adjust to become a good any because your players will suck compared to any other game modes. So my tactic for playing as an any is going in this defensive formation and then going to ultra defensive to negate any of the downsides of having the bad CPU. And there I just talked about the tactics of going ultra defensive. There are tactics in pro clubs, but I don't really use them. I don't find they make much of a difference. You can go like ultra defensive, but still I find myself getting counter-attacked a lot of the times, even when I have those settings, so I don't really bother with them. The default settings are fairly reliable as they are. But that's going to be everything I wanted to talk about in this little intro bit. I say intro, it's almost been 10 minutes, I apologize for that, but I wanted to be really in depth on how to play any and the best styles that go with it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this part. But now that we've talked about all of that, let's get into some gameplay analysis. The first topic we're going to be covering is defending, and as the famous saying goes, defending wins championships. In this first clip, I'm going to be demonstrating containing, and by containing I mean making the CPU press the player. Here you can see the green cursor player press the ball, and then I'm going to track the run with my own red cursor player. And when you're containing, when your CPU are pressing the ball, all you want to do is with your own player is track any opposing runs that are being made in behind. Likewise there, you saw I was tracking the run and then I could pass it back easily and collect the ball. And again here you're going to see the CPU press the ball, and then I'm going to track the runner because that's where the danger's coming from. I know he's going to be the threat, so I need to mark him. Next we're going to be looking at jockeying and how you can swarm attackers. To jockey, all you have to do is hold left 2 on PlayStation or left bumper on Xbox, and you just do this quick side to side movement as you can see with the player I was controlling, and it's a really easy way to cover ground quickly. And when you are jockeying, whilst you're containing holding R1 or RT, you can use your jockeyed player and move around the player who has the ball and close him in like I did there, and just swarm them essentially, cutting off any angles where he could go to pass it away. This is going to be an excellent demonstration of how useful jockeying is, as you can move back and forwards really quickly. Here you can see I'm confusing the attacker, he doesn't know which side to go, and then I win the ball, and then I can put my striker through to score the goal. And if you want further tips on how to defend, do make sure to check out my how to defend video, as this will go more in depth on the stuff I have just talked about. The main aspect of defending is really just finding where the danger is and then eliminating the danger. As you can see there, the danger was getting into the middle and the ball in behind, but I was able to mark that off, make sure he was in a tight area where he couldn't go anywhere. Again, the player wanted to cut back in there, the danger was on the inside, so I was able to snuff that out and block him accordingly. Next we want to look at game management, and this might be a bit toxic, but we want to do many fouls. Now here you can see their attacker is going to be running in behind, and their player could easily have made the through ball, but I made the slide tackle, got the yellow card, and unfortunately they couldn't get through. Look how clear and through that player was, but I was able to block that with my slide tackle. Now when you are slide tackling, you want to make sure you've still got players in behind in case you miss your tackle, because otherwise you're going to be outnumbered and that's just not going to be a nice situation. But there, 90th minute, Mourinho would be proud of that tackle, let's be honest, that was a beautiful foul. Next we want to look at moving the keeper, and to move the keeper all you have to do is hold R3, the right analog stick, and just push and hold that button down. Here you can see, I know they're going to shoot into the far post, get a finesse into the far post, but as we zoom in, you can see I do a slight movement with the keeper and then I can cover that far post. All I did there was hold R3. The other method of moving your keeper is holding Y or triangle, and that will force the keeper to run out to the ball and actually go to the ball. Here you can see I knew I was beat for pace there, but I was ready to call the keeper out, and as any, you always have to be ready to call the keeper out. I should also say, to move the keeper you do also have to be the captain, so when you are playing any, make sure that you are the captain so you can move the keeper. But there again, I was beat for pace, but I was ready to call the keeper out. And just to reiterate, the main part of calling the keeper out is being ready, and as soon as you see the ball going behind, make sure you're calling the keeper out. Now that we're done with defense, we can look at attacking, and to transition from defense to attack quickly is counter-attacking. Now the key to counter-attacking is both through balls and using the mini-map at the bottom of your screen. Now there you can see I did a nice big through ball, but the way I saw that through ball and saw the runner going in behind was looking at the map. Look at the map, look how much space there is for that guy to run into. Just a quick shameless plug, make sure to check out my video on using the mini-map, as that will also go into more depth on how to use the mini-map effectively. But going back to the gameplay, here you can see me take the ball once again towards the wing and then put a nice through ball for my strikers to run onto. And of course, when you're counter-attacking, it takes two to tango, because when you're counter-attacking and putting balls in behind, you're going to need winning runners, and those will come in the form of your teammates. So do make sure to tell your teammates to make plenty of runs in behind. Now when you're getting balls in behind, they don't always have to come from an outfield player, they can also come from your goalkeeper. Here you're going to see me take a run up with my goalkeeper, I see space in behind, and then I can just hold circle or the clearance button and put my striker through in behind. Another very important aspect of counter-attacking is having composure.
Composure, lads, composure.
As with counter-attacking, you're going to be in a lot of dangerous situations where you're going to be pressed by the attackers and you're not going to have many players to pass to. But if you're composed, if you're confident on the ball, you'll be able to find a way out and easily expose the defence. And with being composed, this is just something that comes down to experience. Like in real life, you're going to need experience passing out the bag, as you'll need to analyse a lot of stuff quickly. So don't be upset if you make a lot of errors at the start. This is a learning process and it will happen, and hopefully you'll just get better in time. When you are counter-attacking, chances are your teammates are going to be the ones running in behind. And so with that, you're going to need to support them with your own player. Here, you're going to see my teammate running onto the wing, and then I'm going to run into the middle, make sure I'm open and ready for a cross, and then I can get the goal. And again, here, this is going to be another demonstration of composure. You know, I'm going to run the clip again.
Composure, lads. Composure.
But yeah, that's just a demonstration of composure, making sure I didn't clear the ball because I knew there was plenty of space and it was safe for me to take the ball down in my own box and then I could just pass it out. Here you're just going to see me walk towards the line because I needed to open up an angle to make the pass towards my teammate, and then after that I get the ball and then I can put my striker through who can then score and get me the assist. And now that we've covered counter-attacking, we can move on to possession. And again, similar to counter-attacking, this is going to come down to a lot of awareness as well as composure. Here you can see I'm going to pass it out from the goal kick. And I'm just going to pass it around for a bit, take my time, and then as soon as I'm through, I can put my striker through as well. When you're taking set pieces such as goal kicks, you're going to want to come short because unless you have a target man up top, you're probably going to lose the header and their attack is probably going to be through on your defense. But there you can see I'm perfectly composed and aware of who I could pass to and how I could pass to them. And the important thing to note with possession is that if you have time, even if it's just for like half a second, make sure to use that time so you don't rush and you can just think about what you're doing instead of just forcing it through. Here you can see there's no pass open, so I'm just going to take my time and then play around with the ball, wait for something to open up, and then there I can do a nice 1-2 and then we're through. And as you just saw there, a nice way to create some space for yourself with the CPU is to do a 1-2, as you can do a nice triangle play with that sort of movement. Similar to the goal kick, I'm going to go short for the free kick and then take my time, not too much time where the attacker can press me, but there I've got plenty of time there. I'm going to look at the map, see who's open, and then I can pass towards them. Now I know I've said earlier that the CPU as individuals suck, but in space they're not too bad. There you can see I ran out to the wing with the CPU and then I can put a beautiful ball into the box for my striker to finish. Had I tried to take my own pro out there, I probably would have wasted too much time and the chance would have closed up and we wouldn't have scored. While the CPU do suck as individuals, they are often underestimated. Now that might sound very contradictory, but because they're in so much space, here you can see they're not pressing my CPU. Because they're in so much space though, I can just dink it over to my player who was very open, and I just use my teammate striker as a decoy because he was seen as the threat. And here you can see me use the CPU as a collective, as I'm going to place between the CPU here. I'm going to play towards my own player and then I can play my other CPU in, who's then got plenty of space, and then I can put a nice ball into the box for my striker to score. Just to clarify, the CPU, when they are being pressed, they do tend to suck and they will probably let you down. But because a lot of the times they're not pressed and they have plenty of space, they can be useful, so don't be afraid to make use of them. Now you just saw there my pro created that goal, and I haven't actually really talked about using your own pro in this team, but because this is quite a long video I didn't really want to. And because I have plenty of videos already talking about it, do make sure to check them out, as I am going to do another shameless plug. Now in this final part of this video, I'm going to be talking about how to play against a large team as well as a live summary of what to do as an any. Now in this game you can see I'm against, I think it was 9 players, so aside from the goalkeeper there was only one outfield player that wasn't an actual player. And this was a very stressful game to say the least. But the good thing about playing against a lot of players, especially in defense, is that it's very hard to be cohesive. And what I mean by that is when you're playing in a big team like they are, it's very hard to know when to press, as you don't know who's going to be pressing and when you should like drop back or stay back. And that's what I meant by at the start of the video when I recommended that you don't play with more than 5 players or 4 or 5 players, because that is the maximum I'd say where you lose that cohesion and it gets very confusing, especially in defense, but also in attack because there's just so many people to pass to. And as you can see from the gameplay, you can see that from the chances we created as well as the goal, they're kind of all over the place. And even in this clip, their attack was kind of just confused at what to do. Having said that though, this is by no means an easy game, and it is very mentally taxing and stressful to play against this many players because you just have to mark so many players, and it is really a bit of an impossible job and you will need a lot of luck on your side. But just look at this clip. Pretty much everyone here is being marked on my team. And I'm just going to have to pass back and forth between my own players that I did have the ball with. And then wait for some gaps to open up. Unfortunately, some gaps do open up. And, that's just a bit of composure that you need to have, especially in a game like this. But here you can see my teammate's trying to hold up the ball as well as he can, because he's in a 1v4 situation and he somehow actually manages to find my teammate and they get the block. But something I didn't mention in the earlier analysis is from set pieces and corners such as this, don't be an idiot and do what my teammate did there, but try and hold the ball, try and come short and play like that, because that way you can avoid a counter-attack. Because the CPU's absolute weakness, their super effective counter is going to be counter-attacks, because they can't compete against the pace of like a 99 pace striker that you're going to come up against. Now I was actually on a phone call, which is why my striker was holding it weirdly, and look at that luck from FIFA. Thanks FIFA, just gotta say, so helpful that in a game like this, that is the luck we get. And again here, you're going to see me pass out short from the goal kick because I want to keep possession. I'm going to use the CPU to the best of their ability. And their team was getting a bit frustrated with how I was playing. But again, I'm just going to run on the wing there with the CPU, because look at the space they gave me there, because they just assumed I would pass it off because it is the CPU. So don't underestimate the use of the CPU. And as I mentioned, in set pieces, try and take them so you can avoid a counter-attack. Here was the 45th minute, so I knew I could just put it in the box. And somehow I actually get onto the end of that, and the keeper was able to save it. But just make sure to avoid counter-attacks. This is just a demonstration of how you need some luck in a game like this, as I was marking the run perfectly fine from the striker who had the ball, and then he just passed it off, and there's nothing I could do there as my striker just gets clattered there. But there was nothing I could do there, and fortunately the CPU were able to actually track the run themselves. And that's the helpfulness of having a 5 defense team, that you have so many defenders that chances are one of them will do something right. This clip is just a clip just demonstrating composure and awareness, and I'm not going to commentate anymore over this, so I just want you to watch over and see what I do.
And back with Wang. He's feeling the pressure here. Chang, Berezovsky, Olofsson, An. Useful looking position, you've got to say. A foul, but advantage.
As you saw in that clip, I was in a lot of tight situations where I could have easily messed up and given them a goal scoring opportunity. But fortunately, I was able to stay composed and find players when I needed to. Now from that play, we were able to get this free kick, and from here we were actually able to get the goal that would eventually win us the game, as I was able to dribble through and then pass it to my other teammate CPU. And that is just a demonstration of how useful being able to play out the back is. Apologies if you can hear some rustling in the background because my dog is playing right now. But being able to play out the back is so helpful for getting counter-attacks and just general play, and it will immensely improve you as a player. So I do recommend you practice playing out the back. This clip is just going to show some good defending, as I'm going to force them out wide, keep them out wide, as I know if they put a ball into the box, my CPU will probably be able to defend it. So I'm happy for them to just go to the wing and try and cross the ball in, as my defenders are tall and their attackers are fairly small. And again, that's a bit of composure there, so I can play out the back and then try and start off a counter, and we get the throw-in from that. Here I'm just going to demonstrate some pressing against a big team like this, as I'm going to have to try and cut off the passing lanes whilst also running back, so I'm not being outnumbered in defence. But there you can see I'm cutting off the passing lanes, and then there I can just take the ball off him and then switch the ball back into the middle, so I've got some space to play with. And entering the final phases of this game, this was some poor management from me, because this is the 87th minute. I should have just really tried to hold the ball as much as I could, but I tried to squirt another goal and we lose that ball. But fortunately they make a bad pass and I get the ball back, and then I can just try and hold the ball, slow down the play, try and find some places to pass to, and we can just break them down easily like that. Now some people might say that that's toxic or bad sportsmanship. as I lose the ball there because I try to rush the ball again forward. But, you know, I'm a Chelsea fan. I don't have morals. And Mourinho taught me well. So, you know, we're going to be sweaty. It's not fair. We're against 9 players. But, you know, that's just how it is. So we're going to use any tactic we can to get the dub, as we do there. So, but that's going to be the end of the video, and this has been a really long video to make, so I do hope you guys have enjoyed it, and if you did, please remember to leave a like, subscribe and comment, and have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.